Hello everyone, my name is Khalid and I'm going to interview the one who makes the spirit. His name is Lenny.
Hi, how you doing?
Great.
We have two types of spirits. We have a rum and we have a whiskey. That's our still right over there. Our rum is molasses based, and we do our fermentation and everything here. We have a column still that we use for it. And our whiskey is primarily corn based. We have the whiskey is a 4-year aged whiskey, and then our rums come in 4 flavors. We have a silver rum, which is just a nice light silver rum, a gold rum, which is lightly aged. We have a ginger flavored rum, and we have a coffee flavored rum. And for the coffee, we use locally roasted coffee from Portland Roasting.
All right. What is the difference between beers and spirits?
Well, beer, wine, and spirits all start the same. You start with something that has a sugar, or you start with something that has a starch. You heat it up, you let these little yeasty guys run around in it, and alcohol is a byproduct. So it all starts out kind of the same way. Here, I'll come on over here. So this is our still. It's basically a big hot water heater, kettle. We fill this up to water about here. We get it up to boiling. We let it boil for about 10 minutes. That's just to kill any yeast or bacteria that are floating around. Then we let it cool down, and we put in molasses like this. We put in about a 1-to-5 ratio for the molasses. And we can either let it ferment in here, or we have 2 400-liter containers, which are also the same size as this. And then it sits for 4 or 5 days, and then we pump it back in here, and then we distill it. And the basic distillation process is water evaporates at 212 degrees, alcohol evaporates at 190. So what we do is we heat this up slowly, and as the temperature gets closer to 190 degrees, the alcohol vapors lift off of the water, and they go into here, and they condense, and this is filled with copper packing, and then we run water through it to keep it cool. So the 190 degree alcohol vapors go up and basically touch the much cooler copper, and they run off the still as alcohol. That's the basics of the process.
Yeah. So let's go back here. To this one.
Okay, well, so that's the basic distillation process. The alcohol runs off of here. There's 3 parts to the distillation. There's the heads, there's the heart, and there's the tails. The heads is what comes off the still first. There are basically other chemicals in a mash besides alcohol and water, and some of those chemicals are even lighter than alcohol, so they rise to the top first. So what first comes off the still when it's first running are called the heads, and they have kind of a metallic smell and a kind of a metallic taste to it. Those are generally dumped or not used. So we make our first cut once the heads run out, and it's about 5% of the mash. Doesn't matter what you distill. And then the rest of it is called, 90% of it in the middle part is called the heart. And the heart is the nice, smooth, good part of anything you distill. When we do rum, it tastes like molasses. If you do whiskey, it tastes like corn. If you do wine, it tastes like grapes. That runs about 90%, and once it starts to slow down, we get what are called the tails, and the tails are basically what's left in the batch. There are some nice flavor elements at the very beginning of the tails, but again, for the most part, the tails are not used. So we make our second cut somewhat in the beginning of the tails. And that's the basic distillation process. And you know, this is yeast, and this is molasses. And we use molasses when we make rum because molasses is a lot more flavorful. So when you distill, you want something with really good flavor when you start, even though it does have a lower alcohol. Plus, it's less expensive too.
So all the products are made the same way as you make whiskey and
yeah,
wine?
I mean everything starts off the same way. When you make whiskey, you just take corn mash, and you heat it up in the kettle, and then you let it cool down, and then you throw yeast in it. It all kind of the process all starts basically the same way.
So
The only difference between the spirits is what the base is made out of.
so how are they?
Hold on 1 second.
Or
There's that. Cool. bourbon in there, because it'll be easier for you to draw out. Let me get you a syringy thingy. There you go.
Cool.
All right, sorry about that. What other questions?
How are they fermented and?
Well, like I said, we either ferment them in the still here, or we ferment them over here. Spirits are only fermented for a few days, so it's not like beer that ferments longer, or wine can ferment for quite a bit longer. In spirits, we go for a pretty short fermentation phase.
Like how long does?
4 or 5 days.
That's good. Alright. When the process involved in each step, I think we answered that already.
What are spirits made of? Rum has to be made from cane sugar. Vodka can be made from anything. Whiskey is generally made from corn, but it can be made from any type of grain. And tequila has to be made from agave. Just dump the whole thing in.
Yeah, what about the settlement? Is that alright?
Oh, there's floaties in there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that a bad batch?
No, that is not whiskey. I'm glad you pay attention. Hold on. No, this is a strawberry liqueur I made. I just stuck it in the wrong stack.
Okay.
So, A+ for you for paying attention. Although the strawberry liqueur and bourbon might be tasty. Let's try this one.
You want me to do this one too, right?
Yep, do that one first. Then put that in there. All right, sorry about that.
That's fine.
So yeah, those are the basic ingredients in fermentation or distilling. The alcohol content, whenever the alcohol comes off the still, it comes off between 130 to 160 proof. Unless you're making vodka, at which point it has to be distilled at 190 proof or 95%. When you distill vodka, it's the same basic process, but you use a lower temperature, a few degrees lower, so the alcohol comes off the still much slower and a lot stronger.
So, what are the regulations?
The regulations, there's a lot of regulations we have to go through quite a bit just to get certified to get our distilled spirits permit. Every spirit has to have its recipe approved, and then the label has to get approved, and there are real specific guidelines. Everything has to have a government warning, it has to have a barcode, it has to say who produced it on it, and then everything has its own specific rules, like rum has to be made from cane sugar, whiskey, if bourbon has a bunch of specific rules, it has to be made primarily from corn. If it's less than 4 years old, it has to have an age statement on the front. If it's 4 years or older, you can call it straight bourbon whiskey and you do not have to put an age statement on it. Everything has to have in proof and the alcohol by volume and the volume on the front label. And the rest of the guidelines are kind of vague, and you have to kind of feel them out as you go. So.
Does each product has a color depending on the fruit or the product that it's made from?
Well, is every product dependent on what it's made from?
Yeah, like
I said, a whiskey has to be made from a grain, rum has to be made from cane sugar, brandy has to be made from fruit. So you can't make something from corn and call it a brandy.
All right. Thank you, Lenny,
Sure.
and I really appreciate that.
Not a problem.